So first off, we have Leslie Stratta coming up, talking about mind, body, and spirit. Leslie is a HR executive, leadership coach, and organizational development and transformation specialist with a passion for connecting the what and the why. Leslie's passion in organizational and human transformation and coaching began while working in the healthcare industry. So she's going to share quite a bit around the mind, body, and spirit. So welcome up. Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you very much. I am so grateful to be here today, to be able to speak with you all. If someone would have said in 2007 that I would be speaking to you, I would have, after I had stumbled out of the doctor's office, walked to my car in a daze, stunned by the diagnosis that I had received that I had PBC, I would have said, yeah, right. That's about as likely as me climbing an active volcano in Bali in the pitch dark just to see the sunrise. Or stepping onto a competition stage at the age of 53 in a sparkly bikini after I had been working with a nutritionist and working with a personal trainer. But you know what? I did those things, and now I'm here talking to you. Sharing how well-being and self-care have become a big part of how I manage PBC and what works for me. And I hope to inspire you and provide you with some resources that you can incorporate into your own well-being and self-care practice. So I'd like to share a little bit more about myself. So my passion is well-being, and self-care is making those decisions every day that empower us to look after our health and well-being. And our energy is linked to potential, and when we understand how we respond to stimulus, the task, the activity, the situation, we can determine how much our potential we have available to use by increasing our overall energetic perception. And I'll talk a little bit more about energetic presence and how we can either use it for motivation or we can use it to decrease stress. So my success is in the success of my clients. I love to watch my clients transform, pushing past those limiting beliefs and rewriting the story that they've been telling themselves to all the possibilities and living their best life. So my vision is to create a better every day for everyone through gratitude, kindness, and sharing my passion for well-being. And my mission is to provide exceptional coaching to every client by holding space, showing grace with a spirit of warmth, friendliness, and compassion. I have certifications. I'm a certified professional coach, associate certified coach, and I'm credentialed by the International Coaching Federation. So, as Tom mentioned, I was a corporate executive. My career spans 30 years in the legal, healthcare, and public affairs industries. And as my corporate role shifted, my interest in understanding how people, just in general, connected to their work, really began, how can I connect people to well-being? I connected the dots in the corporate setting, but how can I connect those dots personally? We all have the answers, right? We all kind of know that gut instinct, that intuition, what's next or what we should do. Sometimes we just need to have the questions asked to push us to that next level. Patient advocate and ambassador. I take every opportunity I get to advocate for patients' rights, and I'm a champion for shared decision making. I think it's very important that we have that role, that sharing of decisions with our physicians and our healthcare team, and we have the right to ask those questions when we go in to the physician's office and not feel like, oh, here comes this patient again asking all these questions. We should be able to do that, and I think it's our right. As Tom mentioned, I'm a community volunteer as well. I'm actually a team captain for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. If y'all didn't guess, I'm from Texas. We have over 30,000 volunteers. that run the whole show, and we have on our committee 300 volunteers. So it's a big fun time. So if you're ever out in Texas, it's kind of state like the state fair, but it's a state fair in Houston. It's a smaller version. Also do some work with the American Heart Association, the American Liver Foundation, and of course the PBC organization. And I'm a travel enthusiast. I always have a bag packed. I'm always ready for somebody to say, where are we going? And I usually have my next trip planned before I get home from the one that I'm on. So yes, I am going to be traveling in a few weeks. I'm going to Tulum, actually. So got all my travel planned out for the rest of the year. So let's talk about our journey for a minute. Let's get to the wellness part. Our journeys to diagnosis, even though we all have the same diagnosis, we have vastly different experiences. But we all share that desire to continue living our best lives for ourselves and for our loved ones. So when I was originally diagnosed, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why. What and how. Why did this happen to me, right? I know Dr. Gershwin talked a little bit about that yesterday, about feeling that hopelessness, right? What did I do? What could I have done differently? What could have possibly happened? And then add on top of that, autoimmune thyroid disease, rosacea, eczema, psoriasis, the list goes on, right, as these things come up. So after scaring myself with internet searches, which I'm sure we all did, and trying to decipher those endless medical journals, and thank goodness we do have our medical professionals, our physicians and researchers, and it's come such a long way that we have so much more information now than a lot of us did in our original diagnosis. So I'm an HR professional, right? So who was I kidding trying to decipher those medical journals? And I'm just glad that we have that now to be able to do that. So one day I was particularly frustrated, and I just had this realization as I was going through my coaching process and going through those, all of that learning and training, that I had to stop trying to consider why, how, what, and I had to get about the business of moving forward, taking care of myself, and not letting PBC define me. And so over time, I identified those practices that worked for me, and that's where Leslie Can Do That came from. It was my plan. It worked for me. We all have to find those things that work for us. And that's how that practice of well-being and self-care came about. So I used a tool called the Well-Being Wheel, and I learned how to use that as I was going through coaching, and it's become very helpful to me. And if you look at those 8 dimensions of the wellness wheel, as I mentioned earlier, it's all our energetic perception, our energetic presentation. It's all tied to well-being. And if you think about it, level 1, 2, and 3 energy is where we get when we're first diagnosed for some of us. It's the victim, why did this happen? We get angry, how did this happen? And then some of us fall into that apathy. Level 3 energy is, this is what I have, I'll just stay, stuck here for a minute. But where we want to move from and move out of those first 3 levels of energy is we want to move into empathy. How do we have empathy, not just for each other? We clearly have a community, but how do we have empathy for ourselves? How do we have care and compassion for self? That next level of energy, and we'll talk a little bit more as we go through these, is reconciliation. Okay, this is what I have, this is where I am, what are the opportunities? And that's what we're here to find out at this conference, right? Where are the opportunities? What's new? What are the new developments? And then intuition is the next level of we're all connected. We're all here, right? We all have this commonality. And then the final level of energy, when we get to that very, very high level energetic perception, is oneness, complete passion and joy. Now, who wouldn't like to stay in that level of energy all the time? Realistically, we can't, right? We're gonna Go back and forth between all of these levels of energy. And the bottom line is we just have to feel the emotion. We have to allow ourselves to feel the emotion. I think we don't a lot of times. We compartmentalize it. So when you're looking at the emotion, expanding, or let's start with spiritual, expanding your sense of purpose and meaning. We all have purpose, we all have meaning. We have to really need to hone in on what works for us. Intellectual, our creative abilities. I mean, Carol and the team here with the ribbons and the pictures and the puzzle pieces, amazing how we can use our creative abilities together. Expanding our knowledge and skills, that's what we're here for too. Physical, movement, nutrition, and sleep. We want to make sure that we're doing those things for our well-being that will help us. Environmental, pleasant, stimulating, supports well-being. I know it's been really cold here, right? So it hasn't been, our environment has been a little unpleasant at times. But we put jackets on, we get hot, we take jackets off. Financial, where are we satisfied kind of where we are with our current and future financials? And if we're not, how do we get there? How do we balance that a little better? Occupational, do we have some personal satisfaction and enrichment around what we do? Social, that's a big part of us right now. We're connecting, belonging. We have a really good, strong support system. We're certainly grateful for that. And then the emotional part, which I think is really the biggest part for me and for all of us, is that energy level. Where are we expending that energy and that energetic perception? How are we coping effectively? And how are we embracing those satisfying relationships? How are we creating that? So I want to share another version of that wheel because I think it's extremely helpful, is to give yourself a score. So if you want to do an activity, if you want to kind of figure out where am I maybe lacking, where am I really, really doing well, where do I maybe want to do a little bit more work? If you look at the components of that, you can see the scale of 1 to 10. And 1 being, yeah, I don't have any of that. That's really an area that I want to focus on. 10 being, I'm great in that area. We're all good. Everything's going well. Once you give yourself a score, you can pick those 1 or 2 things that you want to focus on, that you want to work on. Then you ask yourself these questions. When you're picking those areas, which areas do I want to focus on? Where do I need to improve? Where do I want to improve? And why do I want to do it? Now, this is the why that you want to be asking yourself. This is the why of the opportunity. Where is it that I want to make positive improvements, and how do I expend my energy there? When you envision fulfillment in these areas, what do you picture? Have an envision, right? We have hopes and dreams. We have received more hopeful information, at least I have, and I hope you have too at this conference, than I can remember in a long time in the PBC and the PBC community. What types of activities and practices would help you feel more fulfilled? Where do you get that level of fulfillment? What does that look like? And then what actions can you take in the next 6 to 8 weeks to improve in these areas? Because in order to achieve it, you really have to set some level of measure so that you can get there, so that you know when you've done something, when you're ready to move on to the next. So this is just a tool that I use with my clients as we kind of work through what that looks like, so that we don't get stuck in that, when we go through the levels of energy, right, we don't get stuck in that apathy where we're just kind of not doing anything. The flip side to that too that I help people with is I live in the world of opportunity. Everything's an opportunity, so I'm going to go after, oh, that's sparkly, and there's that sparkle, and oh, wait, I might want to do this. So I get so many things going that then I get paralyzed, analysis paralysis. So you really want to hone in so that you're not expending energy on things that aren't meaningful to you. And this is a good tool to do that. So when we talk about mindfulness, presence, and attitude, it's about being proactive in our own lives, right? By purposefully choosing how we want to live. Now, There's certain things out of our control, but the things that we can control is setting clear intentions. Clear intentions will make us more likely to achieve those goals. Loving intentions, that self-care and compassion, will melt away the doubt and the self-doubt so that it can move you into action, taking action on those things. When we focus on attention and awareness, that keeps us grounded in the present moment. How are we feeling right now? In all of those 8 dimensions, how are we feeling about relationships? How are we feeling about our environment? How are we feeling emotionally? And I think it's really important to attach those feelings and express them and experience them and be able to identify them. Because if you can put a feeling to your goal, then you can determine, yeah, maybe that's not right for me. Maybe that's where I'm focusing my energy and I really don't need to. Positive intentions, when we're talking about attitude, lead to accountability, and it allows us to take control of our personal choices in life. So having those intentions, having that awareness, and staying as positive as we can in terms of how we hold ourselves accountable. So remember that 4-mile hike up Mount Batur that I mentioned earlier? So don't let the smiles in some of these photos fool you. It was early, 2:30 in the morning. It was dark. It was drizzling rain. We had a flashlight, we had a poncho, we had some protein bars and some water, and we had 2 experienced guides. So we could only see a certain amount of feet in front of us, right? And so as we started moving through, and as we got up closer to the top, as the dawn started to break, I could look back and see how treacherous those rocks were. And I remember thinking to myself when I got back down, after we had celebrated, it was lovely. We had a great time celebrating. And even though the sun didn't shine, we didn't get to see that beautiful sunrise like we had hoped to. It was just a beautiful experience. And so it reminds me of being in the present moment. Because I will tell you, if we had started at dawn and I could have seen how treacherous and how many steps there were to climb, I would have been saying, I can't do this. So it's those things in life sometimes that we just have to say, okay, I'm only going to be in this moment. I'm not going to think about what's in front of me. I'm not going to think about what's behind me. I'm going to take this step. So that experience comes to mind when I think about, I got to do this and I got to do that, or when I start beating myself up because, I forgot to do this and I forgot to do that, or I didn't do that well. So I encourage you to think about being in the present moment and celebrate the things that you have done. We don't celebrate ourselves enough. We don't give ourselves enough time. We do something, we check it off the list, and we move on. But some of the things, even though we may think they're just, anybody could do that, or, back to that apathy, it could be worse as we're checking. No, celebrate that. Celebrate every day. There's something every day that we can celebrate ourselves for. So next, I want to go into movement and nutrition. And the nutritionist talked to us yesterday a little bit about, food. And I will just say that nutrition is also a very personal thing. So as you're kind of going through the flow of emotions and going through those 8 dimensions of the well-being wheel, nutrition is kind of is definitely something that you need to work through on your own. Now, I go on the PFF is my new BFF, and protein, fat, and fiber. So making sure that you're eating healthy fats, a balance of protein, and a balance of healthy carbs. And so you'll have to figure out what works. What helped me is I kept a food journal. So I could go back over time and I would know, if I eat those pickles or those anything that's been fermented, I'm gonna know, I'm gonna wake up in a few days with my little butterfly. So I love them, I love jalapenos, but I just know if I eat too many of them, that's what's gonna happen. But just through journaling, that really helped me a lot. So again, work with your nutritionist, there's tons of information out there, but I just discourage anybody from doing an all or nothing, right? Like, make sure that you're doing something that's feeding your body in a healthy way. And then when we talk about fitness is the same, right? Like, some of us can run marathons, some of us can go to the gym, some of us can do lots of things. On the days that I can't get too overexerted, walking and stretching are my friends. Sometimes I think fatigue, when we think about that, it's counterintuitive, but when we're so tired, for me, sometimes getting up and doing a little quick Tabata, if you've not done a Tabata, it's like 2 minutes jumping jacks, 30 minutes rest, 2 minutes of wall push-ups. It doesn't have to be an overexertion. It just has to be getting the blood pumping, and that generally gives me a little burst of energy. These particular yoga poses I put up here because these have been shown to reduce inflammation. And my favorites, can you guess which ones my favorites are? My most favorite is that supported fish, right? Because who doesn't like to just lay down? But if you can support your back and open your chest and open those hip flexors, and maybe you get your meditation done during there. But you stretch out and you open that chest. You're more open to the emotion that we're talking about. You're more open to the feelings. And because we sit generally all day hunched over, it gives you that openness to take some breaths. I do, the supported twist are also helpful because it does help that if you have tightness in your hips. And then my other favorite really is the cobra pose, because that's kind of like your Superman pose too, right? It just stretches all of that out because we breathe so shallow, and we just tend to just minimize those muscles there in the abdomen. You don't have to do them on the floor. If you can't get on the floor, don't get on the floor. Do them on the bed. Do what works for you in terms of your level of fitness. So the juxtaposition to that trip in Bali, where I was walking up the mountain and couldn't really think about what was behind me, I wanted to focus on the moment, was setting goals. So when I started my journey to the competition stage, is when I really started to begin being really intentional about my health. So meal prepping, making sure I was sleeping enough, working with my trainer and nutritionist, and those are all accountability partners, right? So, and this was a time when I had the energy and I had the notion to get out there and do this. So when you look at that, in terms of it was a lot of work, but I knew what was in it to win it. And there's my little sparkly bikini, but and that's been several years ago. You can see that was 2016. But this is an example of how sometimes you set those goals and you go for it, right? They may seem like they're not. Why is my thing going on its own? They may seem like they're not reachable, like it's not something that you can achieve. And I will say that if I hadn't responded well, if my nutritionist and trainer, if I had some issues, I would have, it could have turned out differently. But I will tell you that it was more about the journey for me. But again, it was how I was feeling. I was connecting the emotions to it. I was looking at that wheel to see where I was out of balance and where I could potentially use some more balance in that area. So I also want to talk about soothing your soul. We talked about mind and talked about a little bit about body. But how do we soothe our soul? How do we feed our soul? And I think a big part of that is releasing judgment and practicing empathy. It allows us to hold the space and demonstrate grace. And that doesn't need to be necessarily for everybody else. Yes, we want to not judge others. We want to be empathetic to others. But more importantly, to yourself. Show yourself that empathy and care. Living in the moment. So being present, when you get overwhelmed, maybe sit quietly and breathe. Take a walk, get outside, get some sunshine on your face. Think about those successes. Think about all the things that you've done. Think about the wins of the day, your top 3. I like to do a little exercise called top 3, and I'll do it sometimes 3 or 4 times a day because the day gets so overwhelming that I forget sometimes how busy we are and how much we have going on. So I'll just do the top 3. What are the top 3 best things that have happened to me so far in the day? So I encourage you, think about that. What are the best 3 things, the top 3 things that have happened to you just since you got up and got in this room? And if you can do that several times throughout the day, I bet you'd surprise yourself and give yourself pats on the backs for all the wonderful things that you do during the day. Acts of kindness and service, just being kind to others, kind to yourself. I mean, it feels great, right, to pay it forward when pay somebody behind you in the line at Starbucks. But it doesn't even have to be that. It doesn't have to be that significant. A smile, right? How many times do you walk through the day? I know even at work, I can walk through and just walk by someone and just smile, and it'll change the direction of the conversation. It'll change that interaction. They're more likely to stop. So I will say that I want to invite you to allow yourself all of these things. Cancel your plans, have a mental health day, give yourself some time to rest, slow down a little bit, have some alone time. I'm an extroverted introvert. Y'all have seen me out here singing Deep in the Heart of Texas and all that good stuff. If you missed that encore presentation, no. But an introverted extrovert, I have to disconnect a little bit and give myself some me time. So take time to do that for yourself. And take those tasks off your to-do list. They don't have to all get done. You don't have to do all of them. Sometimes they just roll over to the next day. Or if you do have a lot of tasks, think about the ones that aren't going to serve you. If they're not going to serve you anymore, like you put them on your list a week ago, you're going to get all these 20 things done. You get to the middle of the week and you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. That's not going to serve me in the way that I thought it was going to when I jotted it down on Monday and it's Wednesday. Well, just take it off. You don't have to do it. So I just want to give you a little bit of information, and then I'm actually going to take us through an exercise. But I'd love to work together. It's what I do, coaching, complimentary coaching session. I'll do a 30-minute complimentary session for those of you that want to give me a shout and reach out to me on my email. Planning and working together, but it's not necessary. We'll just do the coaching. And then let's talk. Be well, transform, and live. And there's my contact information. But I want to do just a quick visioning exercise. I think we have a few more minutes. So I want to ask everybody to put your pens down, sit in your chairs, feet flat on the ground. Maybe close your eyes if you want to. And take a deep breath. Just take one to inhale, one quick deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Breathe as deep as you can. In through the nose and out through the mouth. We're just going to do a quick body scan. Start at the top of your head. Feel what that feels like. Go down into your face. Let your muscles relax. Let your neck relax. It does a lot of work. Continue to breathe. Just focus on your breath. If thoughts pop in and out, because they will, just let them go. Let them come in and let them go. Relax your shoulders. Continue to breathe. Feel your elbows down into your arms. Maybe wiggle your fingers, feel your fingertips. Feel your spine now, go all the way down into your hips. Feel how strong your back is and how strong your core is, how much they support you during the day. Give them some love. Think about your thighs, go into your hips and your thighs. They're so strong and they get you around. Your knees, your calves. Go into your feet. Feel your feet, wiggle your toes. What does that feel like? What does your body feel like? Where do you need to focus some attention? What needs some extra love and care? Now I want you to go back into your heart. I want you to feel your heart chakra. I want you to, as you continue to breathe in and out, think about your heart. Think about the joy, the passion, the compassion, the love. Think about all of the self-care. Think about all the wonderful things that we've learned today, this week, this weekend at the conference, all the connections that we've made. And just remember that you have all of those connections. You have all of that support and all of that love. So now I just want you to continue focusing on your breath, breathing in, breathing out. Just breathe, be calm. And when you're ready, open your eyes, come back to the room. Take that one final deep breath. And I want you to take a minute and just get out your pen and paper. And if you had something come to mind, if you had something that really stuck in your head as you were letting those thoughts float back and forth, just jot it down and see what that means. See how that will serve you. See what may come of that. See how that will help you. And I encourage you to work on your practice. If that's meditation, if that's walking, whatever that looks like for you, be well, take care of yourself, love yourself, and enjoy the rest of the day.
All good?
Yep, we're good. Or I guess we're all relaxed. No one's saying anything. No one's saying anything, so.
Everybody can wake up a little bit now, but no, that was a great relaxing effort. I appreciate that. And I appreciate, kind of going through some of the aspects, the acronyms you had, PFF as your BFF and all that. As far as kind of celebrating successes, how do you help? I think that's tough for people to do, right? Especially as you look at how do you help people do that?
Well, I think there's a couple of tools that I use. So whenever I guide people through creating a goal, once you've created a goal to accomplish something, it's connecting those pieces so I connect that, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about this emotion with this goal? And as you go through each of those steps, then I like to have people write their story, right? It's called A Star is Born. And it doesn't even have to be daily successes. Sometimes the goal is to write your story. It's for as far back as you can think, write all of the successes, either from grade school to high school it doesn't even have to be a recent success, because just recalling those successes will bring you joy. So there's several tools out there, but that's the one that I like to use. I like to have people write their story. So write your Star is Born story and celebrate those successes.
Great, that's awesome. And I don't know if there's any other questions. I didn't see any as I was walking through, but yeah, really appreciate your time today, Leslie.
Great, thank you all very much.